Do you have a love for cinnamon rolls that you didn't think could be satisfied while you're on a weight loss journey? Not true. These are my fluffy cinnamon rolls. Only 3 bites a piece. And I'm going to show you how to do it. Coming up next. Hello and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Roy. I am a home cook and amateur baker, and I am here on this channel sharing recipes that have helped me to lose over 125 pounds, whether those recipes are mine or someone else's. Today is one of mine, and it is a version of the dough that I did for the light biscuits last week. So if you haven't seen that video, I definitely recommend that one. I'll leave a card up here as well as a link down below. So what I'm going to be making today are cinnamon rolls that are fluffy cinnamon rolls. I've had some with the 2-ingredient dough, and they don't have that fluffy texture you really want in a cinnamon roll. These have it. So what we're going to do is do a variation, as I said, of the biscuit dough. Then we have a filling and a topping, or an icing, that's going to go on it. Now, I did come up with 3 variations for fall. I have pumpkin spice rolls, I have apple cinnamon rolls, and I am still working on the maple rolls. I need to tweak a couple of things, but hopefully by the time this video is out, I will have corrected that, and all of those recipes will also be on the blog. And the link to my recipe blog is down in the description box if you want to find the recipes and print them out. Now I will discuss the ingredients we have here, and then as we go along, I will talk a little bit about differences in the apple and pumpkin versions, and possibly the maple. But let us go over the ingredients. For the dough, we have, as we did with the biscuits, a 1/4 cup of non-fat Greek yogurt and 2 tablespoons of almond milk. I have already put them in a bowl together. They've been out of the refrigerator about 15-20 minutes, so they can come up to room temperature a little bit and make it easier to mix them together. There is a cup of self-rising flour, or if you know me, you know I don't buy self-rising flour, which is sometimes difficult to get here in the Northeast. So I make my own, which is 1 cup of all-purpose flour, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. Not baking soda, baking powder. And I will leave that little recipe for mixing that together down in the description box as well. That way I don't have to have 2 different types of flour on hand. I can have just my all-purpose flour, which I use for many things, and make my own self-rising flour and not have to worry about having 2 separate ones. And then we have the seltzer here, which, as you know, if you saw the biscuit recipe, is the secret in making these light and fluffy. Some people have asked what seltzer is. It's just a bubbly, non-flavored water. You could also probably use like a club soda, but typically they're found with the sodas. There are even flavored ones, but you could also try using the flavored seltzer. If diet soda wasn't that strong of a flavor, I doubt the seltzer would. The one I would probably stay away from is like a lemon or a lime. Well, the 2, I guess. The 2 I would probably stay away from are lemon and lime, because a lot of times those have a very artificial flavor, almost like furniture polish kind of flavor. So I would probably stay away from them and go with something else. But, you know, the world's your oyster. You do as you'd like to do. Now, the 2 ingredients we're adding to this dough Right now, that is the biscuit dough or pizza. Someone did make pizza with it, and that's what I'm going to be doing myself later today. But this right here is the basic 4-ingredient dough, I guess. What we're adding, because these are sweet treats, is 2 tablespoons of a sugar replacement. I'm using Swerve. That's a 1-to-1 replacement for sugar. If you're using something that's stronger, like I think stevia is stronger, you want to go by whatever the manufacturer says for a swap with sugar. And then we have just a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon because we want to keep that cinnamon flavor going throughout, and that'll just bump it up slightly. You won't really taste it strongly in the dough. So anyways, that's the dough piece. For the filling, we have 2 teaspoons of light butter, 2 tablespoons of sugar replacement, Swerve again, of course, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, because this is the filling. That's where you want that cinnamon flavor. And then just a pinch of salt. So for the topping, we have 2 tablespoons of my homemade light cream cheese, which is 0 bites. If you haven't seen that, it's the very first video I ever did, which is an introduction, and then I show how to make this 0 bite cream cheese. I'll leave a card here, and again, I will leave the link in the description box. But that is the perfect thing for this, not to add any bites. If you use a different cream cheese, you may be adding bites, so just make sure you put everything that you use into the recipe builder. We have 1 tablespoon of sugar replacement, Swerve, and then just a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla just to give it a little bump in flavor. All right, so let me move a couple of things. We don't need the icing right now, so let me move those out of my way. And we're not going to do the dough just yet. First thing we're going to do is mix together our filling. So we're going to add in the sugar to the light butter, the cinnamon. You want all that cinnamon that you can get, and the pinch of salt. And then we're just going to mix this up until it becomes a bit of a paste, because this is what you're going to spread. A lot of times, cinnamon rolls will have you coat the dough with butter, I think, and then sprinkle the cinnamon sugar on top. I think this just makes it a little easier. It's just one step. You just spread this whole mixture all over the dough. So you want to mix that together until you get a bit of a paste. And that looks good. It's all one color. You don't see flecks of cinnamon or sugar or anything. So we're going to set this aside now so we can work on the dough. Okay, so we're going to need my 1/4 cup measure. What I'm going to do first is to mix the sugar replacement and the 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon into the dough, or into the flour rather, and just get that whisk. Again, I'm just using a fork because we don't need a big whisk for this. And when we want to whisk in the seltzer, we're going to be very gentle with it. I did have a few comments about people not being gentle, Jason. But I mean, I don't think you have to be. I mean, I might be overly cautious, so don't be anxious about trying this just because I keep talking about being gentle, not to mess with the bubbles in the seltzer. I think it should be fine. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is whisk together our almond milk and yogurt. I'm going to try not to talk so that if this scraping noise is too aggravating, I can turn it down, but it won't be very long. It comes together pretty quickly, especially since they're at room temperature. Okay, that was pretty quick. So then, the reason we mix those together, if you didn't see the biscuit dough, the biscuit recipe, is you're going to add in the seltzer and you don't want to disturb the bubbles if you can help it. I mean, you're going to have to disturb them somewhat, but you don't want to break up too many of them because this is what's going to give us that nice fluffy lift. So by mixing that together first, we don't have to overwork with the seltzer in there and possibly destroy some of the bubbles. So we're just going to add, and hopefully my hands, my arms are going to cooperate with me. I just want a 1/4 cup in there. Not bad. Whoop, I spoke too soon. Okay, get out of my way before I do something like throw you the whole can in here. So we're just going to lightly whisk this together. Like I said, you're trying not to disturb all those bubbles, and that's it. I mean, because the other two ingredients were already homogeneous, whisking this in is very easy. So now we add in the flour mixture. And we're going to gently toss these around because you want to fold gently. Now folding is you go to the outside, scrape under, and then pull up. So if you've heard folding but you weren't really sure, that makes me think of Schitt's Creek. I don't know if you've watched that show where Moira and David were trying to cook and they couldn't figure out what folding meant. This is what it means. So you're just going to take the bowl, run your fork around the outside, down under, and flip it over. So you're basically just trying to get everything coated. Now we're just going to press down to try to make it into a cohesive ball of dough. Okay, so that looks good. Now I'm going to bring in just a little bit of flour, about a teaspoon or so. Because what we're going to have to do, unlike the biscuits, we're going to roll this out. And I know it might be like, but we're going to pop all the bubbles. We don't do it for that long, and it doesn't really disturb them. So like I said, I may be overly cautious about the bubbles, but I'd rather be overly cautious than not. Okay, so the first thing, once you take the dough out, get a little flour on your hands, you're just gonna fold and press. You're gonna do this 3 or 4 times until it's a light pillowy dough. That looks good. You can hear kind of like slapping out baby's bottom. And spread this out a little bit. Okay. So now I'm going to take some of this flour. Even though this is a silicone roller, things still stick. So I'm just going to take that and I'm going to roll this out. And you want to try to form a bit of a rectangle. I mean, it doesn't have to be precisely a rectangle. And actually, let me get my ruler so I can see what size this is. So this is about an 11 by 7 slab of dough. And now we are going to bring in the filling and we are going to spread that all over. Now if it's a little dry, once you start smoothing it out, it should moisten more. Now I did originally try this with 2 tablespoons of the light butter, and it definitely was smoother coming out, but it also added a bite. And you know me, I want something that's satisfying, that's not going to be eating up too many of my bites. So I decided to go with 2 teaspoons of the light butter, and that seems to work out just as well. You just want to spread this all over. You're just going to get it out to the edges. And you can go from edge to edge. You don't have to, a lot of times you might see it saying, leave a border. You don't have to leave a border. Now, if you're using a different light butter, maybe it's a little drier than the one I'm using. I can't believe it's not butter light. If you find that the mixture is too dry for you to spread out, all you need to do is just add a little bit of almond milk, or maybe even some of the seltzer, just to soften it up a little bit, make it more spreadable. That's all. Okay, now I'm going to use my bench scraper. You don't have to have a bench scraper. You could use a spatula. In fact, since maybe a lot of you don't have a bench scraper, let me do it with my spatula instead so I can show you with the tools that you may have at hand. Hold on one second. Okay, so just going to take my spatula and you're going to start rolling it up. And you need the spatula to help get it off the counter. Because some of it may have stuck even though we did put flour down. So you're going to start at the short end, not the longer end, and you're going to roll up from there. And then if you need to, add a little flour to help you along here. I have a little tear in the dough, so I'm just going to pinch it together. It just stuck a little bit to the board, no big deal. Don't stress out about it, it's just food. Okay, so there you have a log. Now you can see this end is a little thinner than this end, so I'm going to stretch it out a little bit and make it a little more even. And then I'll push this end in, just play around with it a little bit to get it even. Now, then you're going to cut it into 4 pieces. And you know I'm notorious for not proportioning correctly because I blame my progressive glasses all the time, but I know it's just me. So there you cut up, and now we're going to transfer them into a 9-inch loaf pan. You could probably do an 8-inch. They'll just be a little closer together, which is fine. So you're going to lift it up, and these end pieces, you want this piece that was out at the end on the bottom and the cut side up. And what you're going to do is stagger the rolls, and I'll show you that in one second, what I mean by staggering it. Because you don't want them sitting right on top of each other. Okay. So see, this is what I mean by staggering, is one's here, one's there, one's here, one's there. And in the recipe, I put a little diagram with X's of where to put the rolls in the pan. So I'm going to put the smaller ones, which for some reason the middle always seems to be smaller for me. I'm going to put those in the middle because the bigger rolls are going to cook a little better on the outside. So these are going to go into a 425-degree oven for about 20 to 25 minutes. They'll be nicely browned on the top. So we'll take them out of the oven, let them sit for about 5 or 10 minutes, and then we will ice them and let that icing melt all over them. But I will show you that in a moment once these come out of the oven. Be right back. Alrighty, there you have them. So far, so good. These just came out. They took about 24 minutes for me. They're nicely dark on the top. They're going to be a little springy when you tap them. That's because they're light and fluffy. They're not going to be dense like a lot of the other low bite, low point cinnamon rolls that I've had. So let me just, I don't know why I took this off, move this over to the side. So while this cools for about 5 to 10 minutes, I'm going to mix up the icing. So let's bring back our homemade yogurt, cream cheese, our sweetener, and our whatever you are, vanilla. And now we're just kind of basically blend it all together. This is one problem with artificial sweeteners as opposed to sugar. If you let them sit out for a while, like while I'm prepping for this video, they can get a little clumpy, but just break them up and it's fine. So add in the sweetener and the vanilla, and we're just going to blend this into a smooth paste. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Now, once these have cooled for 5-10 minutes, I will be back and we will frost them, and then I will give you all the details on the nutrition facts. Okay, so it's been about 8 minutes. The pan is warm but cool enough to touch, so this should be fine. And I noticed while I was setting the timer that I had left my drink back there right in the shot. So I figured I'd show you that this is what I made this time with the extra seltzer. If you saw the biscuit recipe, I showed how to make a soda with the rest of it using half a packet of drink mix. This one is the Starburst All Pink. It's one of my favorite flavors. And this one was actually a gift from a friend of mine, Miss Paula. So if you're out there, hello, Miss Paula. So I've been enjoying that during the break, but now the break is over. So we are going to take our cream cheese icing and just pour that on top of these cinnamon rolls. And I usually just dollop it on in the middle and kind of let it flow a little bit. And then I will spread it out afterwards if there are spots that look like they need it. So you can wait longer than 10 minutes to ice these. The thing about icing them while they're still warm is that some of that creaminess from the cream cheese kind of settles into the nooks and crannies of the cinnamon roll. So that is looking perfect. Now I will tell you the bites on these, as I said, 3 bites. If you had 2 of these, it'd be 7 because of that iTrackBites WW math. Now, if you make the apple or the pumpkin, those are 3 bites, whether you have 1 or 2. So 2 would be 6 bites. And it all comes down to using that late butter, even though we use a very small amount of it. So in regards to the apple and pumpkin, what you're going to do for those fillings, it'll all be in the recipe, but also if you saw my apple cinnamon cream cheese and the pumpkin cream cheese I just did along with the pumpkin butter on Wednesday, you'll have seen that I cooked a lot of the moisture out of the applesauce and of the pumpkin. You're going to be doing that same thing. So it is an additional step to make the filling there, but it is definitely worth it. They both have great flavor, and especially if you want a fall take on a cinnamon roll, that is the way to go. Still working on the maple, and I'm thinking I may have to do something similar with the maple. But I don't want to use extracts if I can help it, because I know a lot of people don't want to go out of their way for certain things. So I'm trying to make things that are more accessible to everyone. I may need to resort to an extract, but I'm going to try without. But let me show you one of these buns. This is what you get for 3 bites. A lovely iced cinnamon roll, nice and fluffy. You can see I'm squeezing it, and it's got some give to it, just what you want in a cinnamon roll. Now, I've gone over the bites, but for the calories, each one of these is 135 calories. If you're following macros, the fat would be 1.1 grams. The carbs would be 36.4 grams, and the protein would be 5.4 grams. Now, for the apple and pumpkin, I will have those listed on the blog. And again, the link to the blog is down below where you can find all of my recipes. So, I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope you will give me a thumbs up. Thumbs up for cinnamon rolls. And also subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet and you're looking for tasty treats like this that you can have on a weight loss journey. Also hit the notification bell for the next time I upload any sort of video, and comment down below if you enjoy a good cinnamon roll, if you're looking forward to the apple or pumpkin versions instead of the plain cinnamon. It's your call, you have options. Also, follow me over on Instagram. My handle is here, and there are 2 Facebook groups that I am a part of. One is Recipes with Roy, and the other is Finding Our Way, W-E-I-G-H. That one I co-admin with Jennifer Lynn from the Jennifer Lynn channel, and Bree Coleman from Balancing Life with Bree. So I hope you are going to give this a try. Definitely a go-to for me now. I've already made 4 batches. Granted, I'm experimenting, but they're worth it. So I'm going to go enjoy my cinnamon roll, and I guess I can spare 1 or 2 for Paul. So until next time, bye.